Chapter 4, Part 2 of 40,000 Miles Over Land and Water. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Betty B. 40,000 Miles Over Land and Water by Ethel Gwendoline Vincent. The American Lakes and the Centers of Learning, Fashion, and Government. Part 2. August 8th. After a day spent in New York, we left for Philadelphia, crossing in the ferry to New Jersey City, where we saw the blackened ruins of the Pennsylvania station burnt a few days previously. 3 hours' quick run brought us to Philadelphia and the Hotel Lafayette. Independence Hall is the center of interest in Philadelphia, a low stucco building supported by pillars. It is fraught with precious recollections of the great struggle for freedom. It was here that the Declaration of Independence was signed on the 4th of July, 1776, and publicly announced from the center steps. In the same chamber, George Washington was appointed commander of the army and delivered a farewell address, and here Congress afterwards held its sittings till 1797. In a room facing the hall are some relics. Amongst a medley of autographs and medals, we singled out a cast of Washington's face taken after death, his horn spectacles and compass. We saw an earthenware pitcher brought over by one of the pilgrims of the Mayflower, and the old Liberty Bell that sounded to the people the first note of freedom in the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. "Proclaim liberty throughout the land unto all the inhabitants thereof," is the appropriate motto graven on its moldy green side. The City Hall, yet unfinished, is of magnificent proportions. Square built, its four sides face and form the very center of the town, the point to which all the principal avenues converge. The blocks of marble used in the construction are enormous, and the four gateways are supported by colossal marble figures. Close by is the Masonic Temple, with a tower of quaint turrets and a beautiful Norman archway, and opposite a church built of a curious green stone called serpentine. Many years ago a Frenchman called Stephen Girard came and settled in Philadelphia. He conceived the idea of bequeathing his property to the state. At his death it was valued at several millions, and a bequest was especially left of $2 millions to erect a college for orphan children. His wish was carried out in the building of this magnificent Corinthian marble edifice called Girard College. It contains large lecture and classrooms, the dormitories and professors' houses being in two adjoining wings. There is no question of election. Any orphan boy from Pennsylvania or New York State is eligible, and the number, now 1,100, is yearly increasing, owing to the rise in value of the Girard property. One curious restriction alone there is. In accordance with a provision in the will, no religious teaching of any sort is allowed. Only the elements of morality are taught, and no clergyman of any sect is given entrance to the college. A marble statue of the founder, representing him as a little, benevolent, wrinkled Frenchman, faces the entrance, beneath which monument he lies buried. The Pennsylvania Hospital, though otherwise uninteresting, has such a very quaint inscription on the cornerstone that I think it is quite worth giving. In the year of Christ 1755, George II happily reigning, for he sought the happiness of his people, Philadelphia flourishing, for its inhabitants were public spirited. This building, by the bounty of the government and many private persons, was piously founded for relief of the sick and miserable. May the God of mercies bless the undertaking. We had a pretty drive through Fairmount Park and ascended by the elevator. How great the Americans always are at any of these mechanical contrivances for saving labor. To a platform 250 feet high, where we had a beautiful view of the 3,000 wooded, undulating acres that form one of the largest parks in the world. To give an idea of its comparative size, Windsor has only 1,800 acres, the Bois de Boulogne 2,158, the Prater 2,500, and Richmond 2,468. It is 5 miles long and 6 broad. We had not time to go and see the Memorial Hall Museum in the park, built in commemoration of the Centennial Exhibition of 1876, and which contains the nucleus of an art industrial collection after the model of South Kensington. A drive through Chestnut Street, with a hurried glance at the fine stores, and we reached the station in time for the afternoon train to Washington. The towns of America, with their even square blocks, so regularly and precisely intersected at right angles, leading to the Capitol, City Hall, or State House, whichever is the presiding genius, are apt to become wearisome in the extreme. How delightfully then we compared Washington to these, the beautiful city of distances! It were worth coming some way if only to see the magnificent breadth of Pennsylvania Avenue at Washington, paved with asphalt and lighted by electricity, sweeping in a perfectly straight line of 1 mile from the dome of the Capitol to the Corinthian pillars of the Treasury. The other avenues and streets are numerically as well as alphabetically named, commencing from the Capitol. 15 of the principal avenues take the names of the 15 states which comprised the Union in 1799, when government first ordered buildings to be erected for the President, Congress, and public offices, and removed the seat of government to Washington. The next morning was Sunday, and we went to service at St. John's, the fashionable church in the precincts of Lafayette Square, where the President attends, but a remarkably small, dark edifice. We strolled back to Riggs House through the square. Here stands the equestrian statue to General Jackson, which is cast from the brass guns and mortars he captured. The poise of the figure is very fine as he sits the horse, which is represented as rearing. The balance of this position is only maintained by the flanks and tail of the horse being filled with solid metal. The small red brick houses in the square, overshadowed by the neighboring trees, where most of the senators and members live, remind one of many a story of wire pulling and place hunting exercised by the clever wives of influential senators. It is a center of intrigue during the session, for the influence of women plays no unimportant part in American politics. The White House is quite near. It is a low stucco building standing in a garden, a small strip only of which is kept private, the remainder lying open to the public. From the entrance gate, where there are neither military nor police on duty, a broad gravel drive sweeps under the portico. Inside there is a long corridor hung with portraits of former presidents. A screen of colored glass divides this corridor from another, which leads off to the principal sitting rooms. It would be difficult to imagine any official residence so simply appointed as the White House. The state dining room, which they say will hold 35 on occasion, but it must be a tight fit, is most suitable for everyday use. A room with terracotta walls is an ordinary drawing room. The blue room is circular, and here the president stands and receives at the levees, which are open to all comers. The green room is a large drawing room, and a ballroom in white and gold with enormous pendant chandeliers forms the entire suite. A back staircase at either end leads to the upper floor. The State Department and the War and Navy have very fine buildings beyond the White House. An obliging official, a groom of the chambers, who descends in his office to successive presidents, showed us through. But as for seeing anything of the other public buildings in Washington on Sunday, we found it was utterly impossible. The further south you come, the more abundant are the black woolly heads of the negroes, with the flaming colors they love to wear, the orange plume with the purple, green, or alternating with stripes of red and yellow. The further south you come, also, the stricter is the observance of the Sabbath. We took the car and explored the dreary suburb of Georgetown. As we approached a cross street, the boom of muffled drums and the strains of a funeral march were heard, and we stopped to allow of a long procession, headed by various deputations, to pass. The open hearse, drawn by white horses, was followed by some mourning coaches. It was the funeral of one of the unfortunate victims of Greely's Arctic expedition. The press just now are celebrating the honors of his return, and side by side is raised a controversy on the awful doubt as to whether cannibalism was resorted to or not. Certain it is that when the bodies were disinterred by the rescue party to be brought home, the flesh was found stripped off the bodies in many cases. Some said it was used as a bait for fishing, but the more dreadful suspicion is that the survivors, pushed to the last extremity, devoured it. In the case of Private Henry, shot for stealing the stores, Greeley is even accused by the relations of resorting to that punishment in order to provide sustenance. It is hard, very hard, that after the intolerable dangers and hardships the brave little band endured, such suspicions should be raised to meet them on arrival at home. Strolling about the avenue rather aimlessly, we came to an equestrian statue. On inquiring about the original, a passer-by advised us if we wanted to see statues to go further on to the Circle. From here we occupied a central position, looking down no less than 8 broad avenues, and seeing in them some 6 or all the principal statues of the city in a coup d'oeil. An ugly circular temple with an obelisk of granite 550 feet high is being erected as a grand national monument to Washington. It stands facing the semicircular portico of the back of the White House, between that and the river Potomac. Monday, 11th of August, Washington. We had to be up very early to see the Capitol before leaving by a 10 o'clock train. What a beautiful building it is, standing as it does on the Capitol Hill, with its broad stone terraces and grass slopes leading into a park. The west front, with a flight of innumerable steps the length of the center building, commands the plaza, and the newly elected president, standing there, delivers his inaugural address to the people below. The first building, laid by Washington, was burnt in 1793, and the present one was commenced 28 years after. Daniel Webster laid the cornerstone and inscribed on it an inscription grandly worthy of the building that rose above it. If, therefore, it shall be hereafter the will of God that this structure shall fall from its base, that its foundation be upturned, and this deposit brought to the eyes of men, be it then known that on this day the Union of the United States of America stands firm, that their Constitution still exists unimpaired, and with all its original usefulness and glory, growing every day stronger and stronger in the affection of the great body of the American people, and attracting more and more the admiration of the world, and all here assembled, whether belonging to public life or to private life, with hearts devoutly thankful to Almighty God for the preservation of the liberty and happiness of the country, unite in sincere and fervent prayers that this deposit, and the walls and arches, the domes and towers, the columns and entablatures, now to be erected over it, may endure forever. God save the United States of America. The colossal bronze statue of Liberty crowns the Iron Dome, and under the Corinthian portico are the bronze doors, almost as fine in workmanship as those of the baptistery at Florence. They represent Columbus's interview with Ferdinand and Isabella, his landing in America, his battle with the Indians, triumphant return, imprisonment, and death. The rotunda is decorated with frescoes painted in such a way as to appear in bas relief. Under the dome is shown the stone where Garfield's body lay in state for 3 days, visited by thousands of people. It was estimated that each incoming train brought its hundreds into Washington during those few days. The Americans were most deeply touched, and allude even now to the wreath sent by the Queen. The 2 wings are given up, the one to the Senate and the other to the House of Representatives. The old Senate chamber is now used as the Supreme Court of Justice, the highest judicial tribunal in America. The various lobbies and reception rooms are very gorgeous in different colored marbles, and ceilings frescoed and gilded, but the interior is hardly worthy of the plain but massive grandeur of the exterior. The gallery in the House of Representatives will seat 1,200, and it is not reserved only for reporters or friends of members, but open to the public, and to any who care to hear the debates. There is a ventilator underneath each member's seat, which enables him to regulate the hot air at will. We were much amused at the ragged condition of the speaker's table, the blue cloth being hammered to pieces in the interests of order. A national statue gallery has been formed by the excellent idea of inviting each state to send statues of two of its most representative men. I admired particularly among the frescoes one by Lutz, called Westward Ho!, very touching in its speaking significance of the hardship the first emigrants endured. It represents the cart piled up with household goods, the mother pale and dejected, with the baby sitting on the top, the elder children plodding along unheeding, whilst the father points hopefully toward the west. In the background other emigrants are crowding along the track. The Sergeant-at-Arms room is small, too small, they say, for pay day, when the members come to receive their salaries. Fancy paying your member £1,000 a year to represent your interests. He must be dearly bought in many cases. The total comes to double our civil list. The President's salary is only £10,000, too meagre for the representative of such a great nation, and the ministers and judges only receive the insufficient salary of £1,500 per annum. Frequent scandals are the result of this parsimony. Such a beautiful view is obtained of the broad avenues and public buildings of the city from the windows of the west front, and the silver band of the Potomac winding round the outskirts at the foot of the green heights of Mount Vernon. We should like to have found time to go to Mount Vernon, and have seen the plain wooden house in a lovely situation overhanging the river which Washington made his home, also the key of the Bastille given to him by Lafayette, and the room where he died. The plain marble sarcophagi near the landing stage marks the tombs of Washington and Martha his wife. The house after his death was bought and presented to the nation by the women of America. We had to give up all idea of seeing the Smithsonian Institute, a Gothic building of red sandstone standing in its own park, presented to the city by Mr. Smithson, an Englishman, and the patent office we found was not open at this early hour of the morning. Inventive genius is here protected and encouraged. In tin boxes, labeled and kept in pigeonholes, is a model of every patent that has ever been taken out. The fees are much smaller than in England, and contrivances for the most homely details have thus been protected. End of section 5.